Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you today that you're not here by accident. You're here because God is working behind the scenes in your life. When you face delays, detours, or disappointments, it's not a setback, it's a setup. Today, I want to remind you that those moments are signs that God is preparing you for a major breakthrough. Stay in faith because your greatest days are still ahead. Challenges are a part of life, and often they can leave us feeling overwhelmed, questioning our path, and wondering if we're on the right track. It's easy to look at difficulties as a sign that we're doing something wrong or that God has forgotten about us. But let me remind you today that challenges are not a punishment or mistake. They are confirmation that God is at work in your life. They are not a sign of condemnation, but a sign of preparation. God uses challenges to shape us, to mold us, and to prepare us for something far greater than we can imagine. When you face obstacles, it's important to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is God preparing me for? Every struggle, every setback, every disappointment is a tool in God's hands. He's not using them to push you down. He's using them to lift you higher. Challenges stretch you, grow you, and strengthen you for the future. They are God's way of refining you like gold, removing impurities so that you can shine brighter than ever before. Think about it. Some of the greatest victories in life are preceded by the greatest challenges. David didn't become a king without first facing Goliath. Joseph didn't step into his destiny without first enduring betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Even Jesus faced trials, rejection, and hardship before fulfilling his ultimate purpose. Challenges are not the end of the story. They are the bridge to something greater. When you're going through a tough time, it can feel like you're being pressed on every side. But that pressing is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to bring out what's already inside you. Just like olives are pressed to produce oil, your challenges are pressing out the gifts, talents, and abilities that God has placed within you. Without the pressing, the potential would remain untapped. The very challenges you're facing are the confirmation that God sees greatness in you and is preparing you for something extraordinary. It's also important to remember that challenges test your faith. When everything is going well, it's easy to trust God and believe in His plan. But when the storms of life come, that's when your faith is put to the test. Can you trust Him when you don't see the way forward? Can you hold on when the answer doesn't come immediately? These moments of testing are opportunities to grow deeper in your relationship with God. They teach you to rely on Him, not just when things are easy, but in every circumstance. Sometimes challenges come to remove things from our lives that no longer serve us. They prune away the distractions, the negative influences, and the things that would hinder us from stepping into our destiny. It can be uncomfortable, even painful, to let go of certain relationships, habits, or plans. But trust that God knows what He's doing. He's not taking something away to hurt you. He's making space for something better. Challenges also reveal your strength. You may not feel strong when you're in the middle of a battle, but those battles are building resilience, courage, and perseverance in you. Every time you overcome a challenge, you come out stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the future. You're not the same person you were before. You're growing into the person God created you to be. There are times when challenges seem unfair. You might look around and wonder why others seem to have it easier. But remember, God's plan for you is unique. Your journey is not meant to look like anyone else's. The challenges you face are custom designed to prepare you for your specific calling. Don't compare your path to someone else's. Focus on the work God is doing in you. He knows what it will take to get you ready for the next level. It's also worth noting that the enemy often attacks those who are on the verge of a breakthrough. If you're facing significant opposition, it's because you're a threat to his plans. The closer you get to your destiny, the harder the enemy will try to discourage you. But take heart, God has already equipped you with everything you need to overcome. The very fact that you're facing resistance is proof that you're moving in the right direction. Finally, challenges remind us to lean on God. When life is smooth, it's easy to rely on our own strength, our own plans, and our own understanding. But challenges bring us to a place of surrender where we recognize that we can't do it on our own. They push us to our knees where we find the strength, the wisdom, and peace that only God can provide. The pause before the promise is one of the most difficult seasons to endure. It's the space between where you are now and where you know you're meant to be. It's the waiting period, the time when the promise God has spoken over your life hasn't yet come to fruition. This pause can feel frustrating, even discouraging. You may feel like nothing is happening, like you've been forgotten, or like you're stuck in place. But let me remind you today that the pause is not a punishment, it's a preparation. It's a necessary part of the journey, and it's where God does some of His most profound work in you. During the pause, it can feel like God is silent. You may pray, cry out, and seek answers, yet hear nothing in return. But silence doesn't mean absence. God is never inactive, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Behind the scenes, He's aligning the pieces, orchestrating events, and preparing the way for His promise to manifest in your life. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't happening. The pause is God's way of ensuring that everything is in place so that when the promise arrives, it will be in its perfect form. This waiting period is also a test of faith. It's easy to trust God when things are moving quickly and prayers are answered right away. But what about when it takes weeks, months, or even years? The pause challenges you to hold on to your faith even when you don't see progress. It's an opportunity to grow in trust, to lean not on your own understanding, and to believe that God's timing is always perfect. The pause teaches you patience, a quality that is essential for the fulfillment of any promise. It's in the waiting that your faith is stretched and deepened. The pause is not just about waiting, it's about working. It's a season of preparation where God shapes and equips you for what's ahead. He uses this time to refine your character, to strengthen your resolve, and to prepare you to handle the promise when it comes. Often we think we're ready for what we're asking for, but God knows better. He sees the areas in our lives that need growth, the lessons we still need to learn, and the preparation that needs to take place. The pause is not a delay, it's a time of development. During this time, it's important to focus on what God is doing in you rather than just waiting for what He will do for you. Sometimes the greatest work God does is not in changing your circumstances, but in changing you. He's shaping your perspective, teaching you gratitude, and helping you develop the qualities you'll need to sustain the promise. Don't despise the process. Embrace it, knowing that every step is leading you closer to the fulfillment of what God has spoken over your life. The pause also protects you. There are times when we want to rush ahead, but God, in His infinite wisdom, holds us back. He sees the dangers we can't see, the obstacles we're not yet ready to face, and the timing that is not yet right. What feels like a delay is often God's way of shielding you from something that could harm you. Trust that His timing is not just good, but perfect. When the promise comes, it will arrive at the exact moment it's meant to, not a second too early or too late. Another thing to remember about the pause is that it's an opportunity for God to build your testimony. The waiting period adds depth and richness to your story. When the promise is finally fulfilled, it won't just be about the destination, it will be about the journey. You'll be able to look back and see how God's hand was at work every step of the way, even in the moments when you couldn't see it. The testimony of how you endured the pause will inspire others and bring glory to God. The pause is also a time to stay obedient. It's tempting to take matters into your own hands when things aren't moving as quickly as you'd like. But trying to force the promise can lead to mistakes, delays, and detours. Stay faithful to what God has called you to do, even when it feels small or insignificant. Your obedience in the little things is setting the stage for the big things. Keep doing what God has asked of you, trusting that He sees your faithfulness and will reward it in due time. It's important not to compare your pause to someone else's progress. In a world where it seems like everyone is moving forward, it can be disheartening to feel like you're standing still. But your journey is unique. God's plan for your life is tailor-made, and His timing is specific to you. What He's doing in you during the pause is something He's not doing in anyone else. Stay focused on your own path, and don't let comparison steal your peace. The promise God has for you, worth the wait, and it will come to pass at the right time. Closed doors can be one of the most frustrating and confusing experiences in life. You make plans, set goals, and take steps forward only to find the door slammed shut in front of you. It might be a missed opportunity, a relationship that didn't work out, or a dream that seems out of reach. In those moments, it's easy to feel disappointed, even defeated, and to wonder if you've done something wrong. But let me remind you today that a closed door is not a rejection, it's a redirection. It's God's way of steering you towards something better, something greater, something you might not have considered on your own. When a door closes, it's often because what's behind it is not God's best for you. You may think you know what's best, but God sees the full picture. He knows what lies ahead, the challenges you would face, and the potential harm that could come your way. A closed door is His way of protecting you from what you can't see. While it might feel like a setback, it's actually a step forward in disguise. God never closes the door without having a better one waiting for you. The key is to trust His plan, even when it doesn't match your expectations. Sometimes closed doors are about timing. The door you're trying to walk through might be the right one, but it's not the right time. God's timing is perfect, and He knows when you're truly ready to step into what He has for you. If the door hasn't opened yet, it's because He's still preparing you or the circumstances around you. Rushing ahead can lead to frustration and failure, but waiting for God's timing ensures that everything will fall into place exactly as it should. Trust that when the time is right, the door will open, and you'll be ready to walk through it. Closed doors are also opportunities for growth. They challenge you to rely on God instead of your own plans and understanding. When one door shuts, it forces you to pause, reflect, and seek God's guidance. This is where your faith is tested and strengthened. Can you trust Him even when you don't understand why the door is closed? Can you believe that He has something better in store even when it's not immediately visible? Closed doors teach you to surrender your plans and align yourself with God's will, which is always greater than anything you could imagine for yourself. Another powerful truth about closed doors is that they often lead to new directions. What you thought was the only way might not be the best way. When a door closes, it pushes you to explore other paths, to think creatively, and to be open to new opportunities. You may find yourself walking a path you never would have chosen, only to discover that it's exactly where you were meant to be all along. Closed doors can open your eyes to possibilities you hadn't considered and lead you to a destiny that is far beyond your original plans. Closed doors also teach resilience. It takes courage to face a closed door and keep moving forward. It's easy to let disappointment stop you in your tracks, but closed doors are not the end of the road. They are simply a part of the journey. Each closed door builds your strength, your perseverance, and your determination. They remind you that while setbacks may come, they don't define you. What defines you is your ability to keep trusting, keep believing, and keep moving forward, knowing that God is guiding your steps. It's important to remember that God doesn't waste anything, not even closed doors. Every experience, every no, every detour serves a purpose in His plan for your life. What feels like a loss in the moment is often setting you up for a greater gain in the future. Closed doors refine you, prepare you, and position you for the open doors ahead. They are not random or meaningless. They are intentional and purposeful. Trust that God is working all things together for your good, even when it doesn't make sense right now. One of the most challenging aspects of a closed door is letting go of what you thought was meant to be. It's natural to cling to your plans, to hold on to what you wanted, and to resist the change that comes with closed door. But letting go is essential for moving forward. When you release what wasn't meant for you, you make room for what is. Holding on to a closed door can keep you stuck, but letting go allows you to embrace the new opportunities God is bringing your way. Trust that His plans are better than anything you could have planned for yourself. Closed doors can also be a reminder of God's love and care for you. It may not feel loving in the moment, but a closed door is one of the ways God protects and provides for His children. He loves you too much to let you settle for anything less than His best. What you see as a disappointment is often His way of redirecting you toward a blessing. Trust that His love is guiding every step of your journey, even the ones that feel difficult or uncertain. A season of testing often comes before a season of blessing. It's a time when life can feel challenging, uncertain, and even overwhelming. You may wonder why you're going through certain struggles, facing obstacles, or enduring delays. But what you must understand is that the testing season is not a punishment, it's preparation. God uses these seasons to refine you, strengthen you, and get you ready for the blessings He has in store. Just as gold is purified by fire, your character, faith, and resolve are shaped through destiny. These moments are essential not only for what lies ahead, but also for who you're becoming in the process. Testing reveals what's in your heart. It shows you what you truly believe, where your trust lies, and how much you rely on God. It's easy to have faith when everything is going smoothly, but the real test comes when things aren't going as planned. When the doors seem to close, when the answers seem delayed, or when the challenges seem insurmountable, that's when your faith is put to the test. God uses these moments to show you areas where you need growth and to strengthen your dependence on Him. It's not about breaking you, it's about building you up for the next level. During a season of testing, you may feel like you're in a wilderness far from where you want to be. But the wilderness is not a wasted place. It's where God does some of His deepest work in you. Think about the Israelites in the desert. Before they entered the promised land, they went through years of testing and preparation. It was during that time that God taught them to trust Him, to rely on His provision, and to understand His faithfulness. The wilderness is not a place of defeat, it's a place of preparation. God is teaching you lessons in the wilderness that you'll need for the blessings ahead. Testing also builds perseverance. It's through the trials and challenges that you develop endurance. Without resistance, there's no growth. Just like muscles are strengthened through repeated effort and strain, your character and faith are strengthened through testing. Each time you overcome a challenge, you become more resilient, more equipped, and more prepared for the responsibilities of the blessings God has in store. The testing season is not designed to destroy you, but to make you stronger and more capable of carrying the weight of your future blessings. Another purpose of testing is to purify your motives. Sometimes we may pursue blessings for the wrong reasons, whether it's for recognition, personal gain, or something else. Testing has a way of stripping away selfish motives and aligning your heart with God's will. It helps you understand that the blessings God has for you are not just for your benefit, but for His glory and for the purpose of serving others. Testing refines your intentions, ensuring that when the blessing comes, you're ready to handle it with humility and gratitude. Testing seasons are often accompanied by pruning. This can be a painful process as it involves letting go of things that no longer serve your purpose. God may remove certain relationships, habits, or opportunities that are hindering your growth. While it may feel like loss, pruning is necessary for new growth. Just as a gardener cuts away dead branches to make room for healthy ones, God is removing what's holding you back so you can flourish in the next season. The testing season clears the way for the blessings that are coming. Testing also prepares you for stewardship. The blessings God has for you are not just about receiving. They're about managing and multiplying what He gives you. If you're not prepared, the very blessing you've been praying for can become overwhelming. Testing equips you with the wisdom, patience, and discipline needed to handle the blessings responsibly. It ensures that you're not only ready to receive, but also ready to sustain and grow what God entrusts to you. The testing season often feels lonely. You may feel like others are moving forward while you're standing still, or like no one understands what you're going through. But God uses these moments of solitude to draw you closer to Him. It's in the quiet, isolated places that you learn to hear His voice, to lean on His presence, and to find strength in His promises. The testing season deepens your relationship with God, teaching you to rely on Him in ways you never have before. It's important to remember that testing is temporary. Just as every storm eventually passes, so does every testing season. It may feel long and difficult, but it's not permanent. God has already set an end point for your testing, and when it's over, you'll step into the blessings He has prepared. The testing season is not forever. It's a passage, a transition, and a necessary step toward the fulfillment of His promises. Testing reveals the faithfulness of God, even in the midst of challenges. He never leaves you. He provides strength, guidance, and encouragement when you need it most. As you look back on the testing season, you'll see His hand at work in every detail. What felt like a burden in the moment will become a testimony of His goodness and grace. The testing season reminds you that God is with you, shaping you and preparing you for a future that is greater than anything you can imagine. When God gives you a vision or a dream, it's often far beyond what you can accomplish on your own. It's bigger than your current resources, your abilities, or in your understanding. This is because the dream isn't just about you, it's about God's glory being revealed through you. However, what many people don't realize is that before the dream comes to pass, there's often a period where it feels like the opposite is happening. Instead of progress, there may be setbacks. Instead of clarity, there's confusion. This in-between phase is a test, a refining process that prepares you for the magnitude of the dream God has placed in your heart. The waiting season can be one of the most challenging parts of the journey. You know the dream, you can see it in your mind and feel it in your heart, but nothing around you seems to align with it. It's easy to get discouraged during this time, to question whether you heard God correctly, or to wonder if the dream will ever come to pass. But the waiting season is not wasted time. It's God's way of developing you so that you'll be ready to walk into the fullness of what He has planned. It's in the waiting that He teaches you patience, faith, and reliance on His timing. One of the reasons the waiting season feels so difficult is because it exposes areas of your life that need growth. You might discover that you're impatient, that you struggle to trust God fully, or that you're holding on to fears and insecurities. God uses this time to work on your character, to strip away the things that could hinder you from fully stepping into your purpose. The dream God has given you requires a strong foundation, and the waiting season is where that foundation is built. Every challenge, delay, and obstacle is shaping you into the person who can carry the weight of the dream. The waiting season is also a time of preparation. While you may not see tangible results yet, God is working behind the scenes to align circumstances, open doors, and prepare you for what's to come. Just like a farmer doesn't see the harvest immediately after planting the seeds, you won't see the full picture of what God is doing right away. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Growth takes time, and the waiting season is where God cultivates what's needed for the dream to flourish. During this time, it's important to remain faithful to what God has placed in front of you. It's tempting to sit back and wait passively for the dream to materialize, but God often calls us to be active participants in the process. This might mean developing your skills, taking small steps of obedience, or being diligent in the responsibilities He's already given you. The waiting season is not a time to be idle. It's a time to prepare, to grow, and to sow seeds of faithfulness. What you do in the waiting will determine how ready you are when the dream becomes a reality. The waiting season also reveals the importance of trusting God's timing. When we try to rush ahead or force things to happen, we often create more problems than solutions. God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. Trusting His timing means letting go of your need to control the outcome and believing that He knows what's best. It's about surrendering your timeline and embracing His. When you trust in His timing, you can have peace even in the midst of uncertainty, knowing that he is working all things together for your good. Another key aspect of the waiting season is learning to focus on God rather than the dream itself. It's easy to become so fixated on the dream that you lose sight of the one who gave it to you. But the dream is not the ultimate goal. God is. The waiting season is an opportunity to deepen your relationship with him, to seek his presence, and to rely on his guidance. As you draw closer to him, you'll find that he gives you the strength, wisdom, and encouragement you need to keep moving forward. Sometimes the waiting season is a time of testing. God wants to know if you'll remain faithful even when you don't see immediate results. Will you trust him when the promise seems far off? Will you continue to obey him when you don't understand the plan? This testing isn't to discourage you, it's to strengthen your faith and prepare you for the challenges that come with the fulfillment of the dream. The waiting season refines your faith, making it more resilient and unshakable. It's important to guard your heart and mind during the waiting season. Doubts, fears, and discouragement can creep in, trying to convince you that the dream isn't worth pursuing or that it will never happen. Surround yourself with people who will encourage you, speak life into your situation, and remind you of God's faithfulness. Stay connected to his word, which is filled with promises and examples of how he has been faithful to others in their waiting seasons. Let his word be your anchor when the waiting feels long and the dream seems distant. One of the most beautiful and challenging truths about the journey of faith is that God works through all things for good. Even when life feels chaotic, when the pieces don't seem to fit, or when your plans fall apart, God is still at work. He's weaving every event, every circumstance, and every moment into a tapestry of purpose and blessing. This truth doesn't mean that everything you experience will feel good or be easy, but it does mean that nothing is wasted. God is a master at taking what was meant for harm and turning it into something that propels you toward your destiny. When you face challenges or disappointments, it can be hard to see how they could possibly serve a greater purpose. In the moment, pain and confusion often cloud your perspective, but God sees the bigger picture. He knows how to take the broken pieces of your life and use them to create something beautiful. What may seem like a setback is often a setup for something greater. God specializes in turning obstacles into opportunities, losses into lessons, and difficulties into growth. Sometimes the very thing you think is working against you is actually working for you. A closed door, a missed opportunity, or a delay may feel like a hindrance, but in God's hands, it becomes a tool for shaping you and guiding you toward his plan. It's in the moments of frustration and uncertainty that God is teaching you patience, resilience, and trust. He's building qualities in you that are essential for the next season of your life. What feels like a roadblock is often a detour that leads you to something better than you could have imagined. God's ability to work through all things means that even your mistakes and failures are not beyond his reach. There are times when you may feel like you've messed up too much for God to use you or fulfill his promises in your life. But God's grace is greater than your shortcomings. He takes even your missteps and turns them into stepping stones. What the enemy meant for harm, God uses for good. Your mistakes don't disqualify you from God's plan. They become part of your testimony and a way for his glory to shine even brighter. This truth also applies to the pain and hardships you endure. Life is full of seasons that challenge your strength and hope. It's natural to wonder why you have to go through certain trials or face certain losses. But God never allows pain without purpose. Every tear you shed, every battle you fight, and every valley you walk through is preparing you for something greater. Your pain becomes a platform for your purpose. The lessons you learn and the strength you gain in the difficult seasons are what equip you to fulfill your calling. It's important to remember that God's ways are higher than ours. His plans are often beyond our understanding, and his methods don't always make sense to us. But just because you can't see how something is working doesn't mean it isn't. Faith is about trusting God even when you don't have all the answers. It's believing that he's working behind the scenes, orchestrating events in ways that you can't comprehend. The very thing you're questioning today may be the thing you'll thank God for tomorrow. God's ability to work through all things also means that he uses your victories and your challenges to bless others. Your story, with all its ups and downs, becomes a source of hope and encouragement for those who are walking through their own struggles. When people see how God has been faithful in your life, it inspires them to trust him in theirs. Your life becomes a living testimony of his goodness and faithfulness. The trials you overcome become the message you carry to others. One of the most powerful aspects of this truth is that it gives you the freedom to let go of control. You don't have to have it all figured out because God does. You don't have to strive to make everything work because he's already working. When you trust that God is using all things for good, you can release your worries, your fears, and your need to control the outcome. You can rest in the knowledge that he's got it all in his hands and that his plans for you are good. In every situation, God is working not just on your circumstances, but also on you. He's using everything you face to shape you into the person he's called you to be. The challenges, the waiting, the victories, they're all part of the process. Through it all, he's teaching you to rely on him, to trust his timing, and to walk in faith. The journey may not always be easy, but it's always purposeful. Every step, whether it feels like progress or not, is part of his plan to bring about something incredible in your life. In closing, remember that every challenge, every delay, and every closed door is part of a divine process. God is not only preparing you for a major breakthrough, but also shaping you into the person he's called you to be. Trust his timing, lean into his promises, and stay faithful in the waiting. The obstacles you face today are paving the way for the blessings of tomorrow. What may feel like a struggle now is simply the foundation for the victory that's ahead. Keep believing, keep trusting, and know that God is working all things together for your good and his glory.